So we have the function x squared minus 5x minus 6, and that equals 0. Now, how do you factor this equation out to find the zeros?
You find the y-intercept, which is -6.
Why would you find the y-intercept?
Because that would be the y answer, because that when x is 0.
So you're saying that when x is 0,
Y has a certain number to it, and it's called the y-intercept, and it's the same when x is 0, and there's an x-intercept.
So is that what they're asking for when they're asking for the roots or the zeros of the function?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's the y-axis and not the x-axis?
Well, because when x is 0, you're not going to look on the x-axis. You're going to look on the opposite x-axis of which one is 0.
So can you draw me a picture of a quadratic function?
Like anything? Okay.
Yeah, anything you want.
This would be like...
Can you show me that on the coordinate plane?
Like that, and there'd be a vertex.
What would happen if you moved that to the right?
How many spaces?
However many you want. Just show me what it would look like. So the point that it crosses, is it crossing the y-axis in any way?
No.
No. So are we looking for the zeros of the y-axis or the x-axis?
The zeros of the x-axis.
Yes, awesome. So if you're looking for the zeros of the x-axis, what values are in x? Is it 0 or is it non-zero?
It would be 0, but the y has a value that's not 0. No, wait a minute. The x has the values, and then the y stays 0.
Yes. So if you're looking at your problem where you're factoring it, you were trying to look for y's being 0, correct?
Yeah.
Or you're looking for the x's being 0 and finding a y value.
Yeah.
What is different about the way when you're looking for the y-axis instead of the x-axis?
The opposite one becomes 0.
Yes.
So instead of, I believe y is becoming 0, x is becoming 0, so now y is 0, and then the x has a value to it.
So if you're looking at this equation, what can you do differently to solve that mistake?
Maybe replace it with y, but I'm not really sure how it works.
Okay, what is your first step?
Well, one is to put 0 equals, and then I have to find two factors that add to -5 and multiply to -6.
So my first question is, why are you setting the whole equation equal to 0?
Well, because that's how you're going to find the solutions, by setting it to 0, and then you're going to plug them back into the equation.
So what does f of x represent? Does it represent what variable?
It represents y.
Yes. So if you're representing y, what does that mean for your zeros? What is the value of y?
Y, I believe, is 0, and then x gets a value.
So then you found y to be 0, so then you said you were going to factor.
Yeah, to find the x value.
Okay, so go ahead. So you found x minus 2 and x minus 3. Why did you pick those values?
Because they multiply. So I need to do, this might multiply to +6, so I need to make this a negative. So
You need to make what a negative?
something in the parentheses, like within them.
So you're trying to find two numbers that multiply to -6 and add to -5.
Mm-hmm.
And you said -2 and -3 multiplied together give -6.
Well, so it does for 5, but for the -6, there needs to be like another negative or something I could add.
So what other values or other factors of 6?
Maybe I can wait. Okay, I'll try another one. Equals x. There's 1 and 6. So x plus 1, x minus 6.
So why did you choose x plus 1 and x minus 6?
Well, because these ones, it works for both. Adds to -5 and multiplies to -6.
Okay, continue.
So it would be x plus 1 equals 0. X equals 1.
So you found x to equal -1 or x equals 6.
Yeah.
Why how did you find x equals -1?
Well, from this factoring equation, the new one that I made, the first parenthesis says x plus 1 equals 0. So when you fill in the blank for x, it would be -1. And same for these parentheses, x minus 6. So x minus 6 equals 0, and x would equal 6.
So you had 0 equals x plus 1 times x minus 6. Why do you have to set x plus 1 equal to 0, but also set x minus 6 equal to 0?
Well, because if you do something to one, you have to do something to another. It has to like both find like.
So how do you get 0 in an equation? How do you get that as your answer? With two numbers multiplied together.
You mean like these parentheses?
Yeah, so you have two different things multiplied together. How does that give you 0?
You can just add a 0 to the end because assuming that you're going to get another variable.
If you're multiplying, how do you get a 0 from just two numbers being multiplied?
You multiply 1 by 0.
So 1 has to be 0.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you said, well, either x plus 1 equals 0 or x minus 6 equals 0.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get that x plus 1 equals 0 comes out x equals -1?
Well, you can just do 0 minus 1. Like, you can just fill in the blank. Or you can even do, like, the longer way and subtract 1. You'll get x equals -1 either way.
So you subtracted 1 from each side to get x by itself. And then 0 minus 1 became -1.
Mm-hmm.
And you did the same thing to x minus 6 equals 0?
Yeah.
So what are the points of those two zeros on your graph?
X equals -1 would be over here. And x equals 6 would be over here.
So you have that. What are those points? You said x equals -1. What is the coordinate pair value of those?
So x -1, y 0, and x equals 6 and y is 0.
So you're saying that each y value is 0.
Yes, for both of these.
So could you write down what each coordinate pair would look like?
You mean like the?
Yeah. So when you pointed it on the graph, can you write what that point is?
Yeah.
So then you found your zeros to be -1, 0, and 6, 0.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I needed.